Donald Trump is ordering the Navy to replace some of their newer, better products with older, crappier ones. Why? Actually, the reason turns out to be both hilarious and disastrous. This guy is a child. Now we're going to tell you how much this is costing us and why he did it. Elliot, tell us the story.
Yeah, so on Thursday, President Trump issued a directive to have the US Navy remove the advanced system used to launch fighter jets from its newest kind of aircraft carrier and replace it with older steam catapults. This could reportedly cost millions, if not billions of dollars, and result in a system that takes more sailors to operate, and it's all more difficult to maintain. So why is this happening? Well, he really likes the steam catapults, and he's been talking about them as far back as 2017 when he told Time about an interaction he had with one sailor. You know, the catapult is quite important. So I said, what is this? Sir, this is our digital catapult system. He said, well, we're going to this because we wanted to keep up with modern technology. I said, you don't use steam anymore for catapult? No, sir. I said, how's it working? Sir, not good, not good. Doesn't have the power. You know, the steam is just brutal. You see that sucker going and steam's going all over the place? There's planes thrown in the air. It sounded bad to me. Digital, they have digital. What is digital? And it's very complicated. You have to be Albert Einstein to figure it out. And I said, and now they want to buy more aircraft carriers. I said, what system are you going to be, sir? We're staying with digital. I said, no, you're not. You're going to be GD Steam. The digital costs hundreds of millions of dollars, more money, and it's no good. So in contrast to the steam catapults, the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, otherwise known as emails, launches aircraft at faster speeds. It also allows for quieter and cooler work and living conditions for our sailors. They're easier to maintain and therefore cheaper in the long term. And on the USS Ford, it also reduced the number of sailors needed to operate the catapults from 12 down to 2. That last part is also especially important right now because the Navy is actually struggling to actually get sailors on the ships, despite the fact that they've had some successes in recruiting lately. At the top of the year, there were about 20,000 positions that they were trying to fill. The first ship that will undergo these changes is the USS Doris Miller, which is the fourth Ford class carrier. That happens to also at this time already be 2 months behind schedule. But General Atomics, the company that makes the electromagnetic system, says it's already about half finished and that changing course now would introduce significant cost, schedule, and integration risks. Also, it is not just the catapults that is returning to the steam age. The US will also scrap advanced weapons elevators installed on the Ford class carriers and replace them with hydraulic systems. Trump said AWEs bring bombs, missiles, and other weapons up from storage to the flight deck. The memorandum also said the Navy will be able to utilize a small number of vessels made overseas, with US shipyards unable to keep pace with current orders and planned projects falling behind. China, for its part, uses the new electromagnetic system on their newest operational carrier. France is still using the old steam catapults, but plans to transition to the electromagnetic version in future iterations of their carriers. So apparently Donald Trump heard something one time 9 years ago in 2017, and it stuck in his head. And now they're going to stall construction on this, rip out a system, and it's going to cost taxpayers a lot of money. It's going to delay the construction, and who knows what else is going to happen. So, Cenk, what are your thoughts?
There's a lot of amazing parts of the story. So, first of all, the Chinese now are going to have a competitive advantage over us because they're using the newer system, and we have purposely chosen to go backwards. So we've given up the advantage we originally had. Secondly, it's going to cost billions on top of billions. Totally unnecessary. At best, it would be a tie between the two systems, but it's not. Why is it not a tie? There's a million problems that go wrong in the steam one. That's why it was replaced. It requires a lot more pipes. And so when you have so many pipes in the ship, there's different opportunities for it to break down. Now, does Trump know that level of detail? Of course not, because he's a child. You heard a sailor say, "Oh, I like how it's powerful, the steam thing." He said, "Oh yeah, I like power. Oh, it's a catapult, yeah, right." He probably thinks it's like an old Roman catapult, and he's probably picturing, "Oh, so how do they fit the catapult on top of the aircraft carrier?" Huh, interesting, right? And so another interesting part of it is that the Pentagon ignored him for 6 years, 4 years in his first term, 2 years in this one, and then normally he forgets. So that's like, if you remember in his first term, he asked them to 10x our nuclear weapon supply. And that's when Secretary of State Rex Tillerson back then walked out of the meeting and said, what an effing moron. Because that would cost more money than our GDP. Like, it would bankrupt the country completely. That is massively expensive. So instead of trying to explain it to Trump over and over, they're just like, oh, let's just ignore him. And he totally forgot about it. And that's happened many times, right? Now, if you're in the right wing, you're gonna be mad about that. And I get that, they shouldn't ignore the president, right? Unless the president's a freaking child. And he's like, no, I want new toys. I want 10 times the nukes. What are we gonna do with 10 times the nukes? So in this case, they did the same thing. They're like, why would we waste tens of billions of dollars going back to a crappier system? Just ignore the child, right? And they did. But unfortunately, in this case, he came back and he's like, no, I remember this one. I like catapults on the aircraft carriers. That's gonna look super cool, but how do you get the flaming rocks on it? Okay, so look, I'm kidding about the catapult stuff. He didn't say any of that. But yeah, there's just no justification for this other than him talking to one sailor.
Yeah, and one sailor 9 years ago. Like, my understanding is when they started to unveil the electromagnetic system, it took a second for them to figure it out, but it has been 9 years, and it turns out they did figure it out. Also, it uses less room on the ship, and also that point where it allows for quieter and cooler work and living spaces for sailors seems like a pretty good thing right now, given all the reports we're hearing about what's going on those ships. And so it seems like another example of Trump just not thinking about the people that are actually doing these things and the workers and the sailors and the service members, and instead going, hey, I have an idea and we're gonna do it. I also really don't understand why you would switch out the other one, the AWE, for a hydraulic system. And I don't know if he's talking to someone who maybe makes those and it's beneficial, but there was a report this week that Trump is also, his aides are very frustrated because they're finding out that when they leave for the evening, other folks are calling Trump late at night to essentially whisper in his ear. And so they're coming back the next morning and finding out that there's a whole new plan in motion. And so this apparently is a pattern of behavior where if you just get in front of Trump and say whatever you want, you can convince him of pretty much anything. And I'm not entirely sure that's who we want with these nuclear codes, or 10 times the amount of nuclear codes.
Yeah, look, last thing is to back up this child point. So he's like, wind, I don't like wind. Okay, the wind energy bad. Because they once tried to put windmills around his golf course in Scotland. So that really, he caught feelings over that. So he's been saying, wind gives you cancer. But steam, I like steam. I don't like wind, I like steam. Let's use steam catapults, okay? We have to like change our entire policies, including how we defend the country, waste billions of dollars based on this guy's absurd beliefs. Do you know why he doesn't exercise? He says that if you exercise, you have a limited amount of energy in your life, and the more you use that energy exercising, the quicker you'll die. This guy's our president. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.